Hello, Petals. How you doing? How's everything going? I hope you're okay. I hope you're doing fine. I hope you're looking forward to chapter 19 and maybe even chapter 20 today. I would love to be able to give these both to you because it's just one of those weeks. And also, we're cracking on through November, and I've got big plans for December. And I have already started recording Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Woo! And we're going to do Here Comes the Sun as well. And then we're going to look forward to January when we're going to start doing some more Robert Rankin. And of course, more Tom Holt, of course. So my lovely, lovely beans, I hope all the sound is okay because I'm going to do a WW and do this while I'm going live on YouTube, which is awesome. But at the end of the day, it'll still be there no matter what time you watch it. And I'm always grateful to see you. So, chapter 19 of Paint Your Dragon by our beloved Mr. Tom Holt. Kurt had allowed himself 20 minutes to get from Birmingham to the heart of the Gobi Desert. Thanks to the small flask of concentrated time which Chubby had issued him with, it proved to be ample. An imposing figure was waiting for him around the back of the gents' lavatory. It was wearing a Brooks Brothers suit over its lurid, misshapen body and a pair of dark glasses perched on the bridge of its beak.
"Hi," Kurt said. "Sorry if I kept you waiting."
"Bang on time, Mr. Lundqvist," replied the captain of Spectral Warriors, handing over a suitcase. "Here's the doings. Best of luck." Kurt grinned.
"Luck," he said, "is for losers. You got your boys standing by. In position. You can rely on them to do a good job."
Kurt picked up the suitcase.
"Be seeing you then."
He started to walk away, but the captain stopped him. "Mr. Lundqvist," he said, "I'm curious."
Yeah, but don't let it get to you. The shades help. A bit.
"I'm curious," the captain went on, "about which of them you're going to take out. Yeah, sure, I got my orders. I don't actually need to know at this stage. I was just wondering." Kurt grinned. A big, wide grin that would make a wolf climb a tree.
"Watch this space,"
he said.
"Then you'll know for sure."
George circled, keeping high. "Born yesterday?" Not him. "Came down in the last shower? You must be thinking of somebody else." He hadn't slashed a path through the red-clawed jungle of combat theology to a saintship without knowing when a situation was well and truly hooked. And if ever a setup stank, it was this one. Souls don't just float up out of bodies for no reason. It takes big medicine to work a trick like that. And for it to happen just before a major set-piece battle between good and evil. Some of George's best friends were coincidences, but that didn't mean he trusted them as far as he could spit.
"Well," he said to himself, "and what would I do if I were fixing this fight? Easy. I would position a sniper somewhere in the arena. That way, when I come rushing in to scrag my enemy, the sniper blams me just as I'm about to put my wings back and dive. It looks like St. George has killed me. Good triumphs over evil for the second time running. Yeah, well, we'll see about that."
He gained a few thousand feet and looked down. Below him, the huge arena looked like a tiny little scab on the knee of the desert. It was packed with people, high rollers and fight aficionados from the length and breadth of time. George chuckled. Now, the way he saw it, spectator sports are, at best, a rather morbid form of voyeurism. So much better if you can participate directly in the action. He started to dive. The joy of it was that the deaths of all the people he was gonna incinerate by way of a diversion would be blamed on the dragon, representing evil and doing a pretty spectacular job, rather than noble, virtuous St. George, representing poor-faced, one-hand tied behind its back good. Given the dragon's track record, nobody would have the slightest problem in believing that it decided to zap a whole stadium full of humans for the sheer hell of it. He took a deep breath. In the white corner, The dragon lifted his helmet, blew dust from the liner, and put it on. It was hot and stuffy and smelt of mothballs, and it wasn't made of asbestos. Bloody silly thing to wear in a dragon fight, he couldn't help thinking. With a sharp pang of anger and loss, he saw a familiar shape, far off in the harsh blue sky. Here he came, the bastard.
Okay,
He said to the armourer.
I'll have the sword now, please.
The armourer grinned at him.
Get real, buddy, he said. You got to try and kill that thing, and you're planning on using an overgrown paper knife. Man, you're either stupid or crazy.
The dragon was about to speak, but decided to look instead.
Don't I know you? You may have heard of me, the armourer replied. My name's Kurt Lundquist.
The dragon stared at him.
But aren't you meant to be down there somewhere with a gun or something?
Kurt shook his head.
My disguise didn't quite work, did it? No, that, my friend, would be a bad move. I'd hate my last thought before I die to be, God, how could I be so fluffing stupid? I'm going to stay right here where it's safe. Safe?
Kurt nodded.
Because, he went on, if I've sussed that bastard George, he'll start off by zapping the audience, just to make sure there's nobody like me in there waiting to take a shot at him. That sound like the George you used to know?
The dragon nodded.
I won't ask how you know who I am,
he said.
But we can't actually let the bloodthirsty lunatic kill 50,000 people. What are we going to? Why not? Why not?
The dragon gulped, gobsmacked.
For Christ's sake, you idiot, that's people out there. It's your bloody species, and you stand there like a bloody traffic light saying, why not?
Kurt nodded.
Sure, he said. Think about it. Nearly all these guys are playing hooky from their own time, right? And what sort of guys are they? You don't know? I'll tell you.
The dragon grabbed his arm. The flying shape was getting closer.
Not now, you bastard. Do something. Those guys, Kurt continued, calmly unhooking the dragon's hand from his arm, are your aristocrats, your statesmen, your notable public figures, captains of industry and generally mega-rich citizens. Now then, think open spaces, town squares, piazzas, pigeons sitting on...
Suddenly the dragon relaxed and began to laugh.
Statues, he said. Eventually the penny drops. Yeah, man, statues.
Kurt shook his head and sighed.
Geez, for a superior intelligence, you must be just plain dumb, he said. Haven't you worked it out for yourself yet? You've been cruising around, breathing fire, torching buildings and all that kind of crap, and nobody's really died. Even those,
here Kurt shuddered, recalling his own sufferings,
those ladies, he spat, in that hall in Birmingham didn't actually die. Nobody actually dies because of you, you moron. And you know why? Because you're the good guy. I am.
Kurt indulged himself with a theatrical gesture of contemptuous despair.
Man, he said witheringly, you are dumb. Look, he went on, when you're the good guy, however hard you try to do evil, you just can't hack it. Unfair, sure, but that's the way it goes. There's always someone trailing along behind you, in this case me, sorting out the mess and bringing the dead back to life. Kind of goes with the territory. I see, the dragon lied. Just a second. This thing with the bodies, him getting mine, me getting his. Kurt nodded. I hired a witch doctor to make the switch, he said. Even a dumbbell like you should have been able to work that one out. I mean, how can good triumph over evil if the goddamn dragon kills Saint fucking George?
The dragon's reply was drowned out by screams. George was killing the audience. When he'd finished doing that, he hovered for a moment above the centre of the arena, waiting for the smoke to clear so he could see. Time spent on reconnaissance is never wasted. When he was satisfied that everything was okay, nothing on the benches but charred bodies and the like, smoking corpses, horribly twisted and distorted shapes that had once been people, he climbed, circled twice, put his wings back, and came in on the glide, letting his own momentum carry him in. Chubby Stevenson, who wasn't quite dead yet, watched him slipping gracefully through the sky, no sound except the whistling of the air, and reflected that he had never seen anything quite so beautiful in his life before, and, he concluded, since it was extremely unlikely that he was going to get a better offer in the few seconds that remained of his life, what better way to go than feasting his eyes on beauty? With luck, it might help take his mind off the agonising pain. Beside him, where it had fallen, his Kawagachia Personal Electronics LFZ6686 laptop computer, which had somehow not been melted into a shapeless plastic blob during the firestorm, switched itself on and cleared its screen.
Did you remember to get my bet on?
What? The effort of speaking racked Chubby's body with pain.
Oh, God. Yes. Your bet. No, I forgot. Sorry.
What? You idiot. You stupid, careless, good for nothing.
You're kidding, Chubby said. I got you 25-1. The slip's in the asbestos wallet in my inside pocket. Hey, computer. When I die, who gets my soul? I mean, I think I still own the majority of it, so surely.
You did when this conversation started. When you said the word majority, though, you just tipped the scale in my favour. So long, sucker.
You bastard,
Chubby said, and died. The dragon watched as the shape grew. Seeing himself for the first time through mortal eyes, he realised just how enormous a dragon is. Narrator's note, I suppose it would actually be quite large. I always wondered with the whole sort of statues of dragons and stuff, there must be some level of artistic impression. Because, let's face it, they're either the size of a kimono dragon, or they're the size of a double-decker bus. So are they dinosaur turned reptile, or are they kimono dragon monitor lizard exaggerated? The things that go through my mind, and thank you, Flatcamp, I appreciate that. It's all just good fun. The dragon watched as the shape grew. Seeing himself for the first time through mortal eyes, he realised just how enormous a dragon is. And that is what makes the difference, he realised. Dragons are so much bigger than people, not to mention faster, stronger, tougher, more intelligent. Only a complete idiot could expect them to live by the same rules. Sure, George, the psychopath, had just killed 50,000 people. So what? Dragons are different from you and me. You have to make allowances.
Wake up, cretin!
Kurt hissed in his ear.
Come on, you've got work to do. Have I? Oh, sorry, yes. How do I work this thing?
I'll try that again. Kurt clicked his tongue.
You haven't been listening, have you? Look, all you gotta do is look through the little black tube. When the red dot's on the middle of the dragon's chest, press the button. Thanks.
The dragon studied the device in his hands, basically a big grey tube with a smaller black tube perched on top. There was a serial number and the words "Made in Hell" stenciled on the back end. He peered through the scope, lined up the sights, and George exploded. Kurt later explained that he'd missed the heart-lung area and hit the stomach instead. Hence no instantaneous kill. Not that it mattered, because the rocket detonated inside the fuel reserves in the beast's intestines. This was why, for perhaps as long as 2 seconds, the poor bugger hung there in the sky, head and tail writhing sickeningly, while the whole centre section became a huge orange fireball. 2 seconds later, the whole lot went up with a heavy thump noise, which made the ground shake and sent charred bits of dead spectator flying around like dead leaves in a sharp gust of wind. An enormous blob of fire hung on in the air for maybe a second and a half longer, and then the whole lot sank slowly, like a burning airship, to the ground. The smell was probably the nastiest thing ever to happen on the surface of the planet.
Gosh,
The dragon said.
I've always wondered what the triumph of good over evil looks like, and now I know.
He hesitated, frowning.
On the whole,
He continued,
I think I can take it or leave it alone. I mean, it's all right for a change, but I wouldn't pay money to watch it.
At his side, Kurt was impatient.
What is it with you goddamn heroes? He demanded tetchily. Never knew a hero, but he burst out soliloquizing. Narrator's note, try saying that with your mouth full. Yes, a large ruminant animal with hard teeth, a bird combined with a teeth clack, poof, instant fireball, add a witness, a telltale round of careful like monster. Good point. Right, I've got to try and do this again. Okie dokie, here we go. At his side, Kurt was impatient. What is it with you goddamn heroes? He demanded tetchily. Never knew a hero, but he bust out soliloquizing when there's still work to be done. No, so when you have quite finished... Sorry,
the dragon said.
I was miles away. Now what?
Now, said Kurt,
we gotta go to Birmingham, which is currently the most important place in the universe. Probably just as well they don't know that. It really play hell with property prices. Usually,
he went on, unzipping a pocket of his fiendishly expensive custom combat with a K survival jacket.
The journey takes 9 hours, and that's if you include in-flight refueling. Fortunately,
he held up a small bottle to the light.
Looks like we got a good 9 hours left.
He unscrewed the cap.
Come on, fella, let's move it. My jet's this way. Oh shit, I was forgetting.
The dragon sighed. He wasn't a dragon anymore. All that he'd ever been was now a smoking red glow half a mile away across the corpse. Chalked stadium.
Promise me you won't fly too fast,
he said, scrambling to his feet.
I get airsick.
And here, said the council spokesman, is where we're going to have the statues. Impassive Japanese faces turned and contemplated a big rectangular block of stone slap bang in the middle of Birmingham's world-famous Victoria Square. The spokesman had no way of telling whether they loved it, hated it, or simply couldn't give a flying frisbee. He ploughed onwards, feeling like Father Christmas at a mathematicians' convention. The statues, he bleated, his back to the plinth so he didn't have to look at it, when they're finished, will be the most exciting young talent of the decade, Bianca Wilson, and will depict St. George and the Dragon, that timeless allegory of... The Kawagachia people weren't listening. They were staring at something behind him. The white-haired one was conferring with his 2 youngest aides. God, the council official thought, how terribly rude. Good, he continued firmly, versus evil, a theme perennially relevant to us today in this modern age. The original statues were, of course, destroyed in an explosion, but, Jesus wept, what was it these bastards found so irresistibly interesting? Unable to resist it any longer, the council official turned slowly round and saw... The original statues, he continued seamlessly, have been expertly restored by a team of, experts working 24 hours a day and are now once again triumphantly here on display, as you can, see. Right, now, if we turn to our left, we can see the award-winning Colmore Tower. Bianca turned the corner out of Eden Place, stopped dead and stared. The dragon was back, exactly as it had been, where it had been, cold stone, lifeless, empty. The sight of it made her want to throw up. As she walked slowly towards them, an elderly woman in a tweedy coat and a headscarf touched her arm. "Hiya," she said, as Bianca started and turned her head. "You're that Bianca Wilson, aren't you?" "Huh? Yes, that's me." "Saw you on telly. You got blown up." "That's right, so I did. Look, if you'll excuse me." The woman did not move. God, Bianca realised, I can't remember if she one of mine or is she real. Still, short of brushing her hair forward from the back of her neck and looking for chisel marks, Bianca had no way of knowing. "You did the carving," the woman said. "Guilty," Bianca replied. "I mean, yes, that's mine, my statue." "Yes?" The woman looked at the great stone dragon, then back to Bianca. "Not really my cup of tea, this modern stuff," she said. "I like things more traditional myself. Well, like that cat watching a bird our Neville got from the garden centre. Of course, he lives over Shenley Fields way. They've got more space for gardens there." "Quite. If you'd just excuse me." "If I was you," the woman said, "I'd do a nice animal, a cat or a dog or something. People like a nice animal." Bianca closed her eyes. "Thanks," she said. "I'll definitely bear that in mind." The old woman released her arm. "Well," she said, "I best let you get on. Nice to have met you." "Likewise," Bianca said. She watched until the old woman had trotted away towards the library, then walked slowly up to the statue, as if she was stalking a deer. Even as she did so, however, she knew there was no need. This time, there was nobody home. In her statue, meanwhile, the spare statue, number 16, quickened into life, jumped as if someone had stubbed a cigarette out on its nose, and fell over. By the time it hit the floor, it was flesh and blood, not marble. Instead of breaking, therefore, it swore. And it was no longer it. It was she, which was, as far as Chubby Stevenson was concerned, was a rotten trick to play on anybody. She was standing there, motionless as, well, a statue, for example, when an open-topped jeep roared up beside her. She looked around. "Get in," Kurt shouted. "We've got 90 minutes left. Don't actually need you for this bit, but I thought you might like to see the end." "Not really," Bianca said, looking away. "If it's all the same to you, Kurt, while you're here, you're the sort of bloke who uses explosives and things. You couldn't spare me a bit, could you? Just enough to blow this lot to tiny pieces, that's all."
"You fucking dare,"
snapped the man in the passenger seat. She looked more closely and reacted. If she'd been a cat, she'd have arched her back, extended her claws, and hissed.
"Cool it," Kurt said. "It's George's body, but Fred inside. You coming or not? We're gonna pick up Mike on the way. Make sure we got the whole team."
Bianca shrugged. "Might as well," she said. "Just so long as nobody asks me to do anything, because right now I simply can't be bothered." Kurt grinned and opened the door.
"Get in,"
he said. Well, as soon as they'd gone in through the door that led to the computer room, Kurt had locked it and produced, God only knew where from, a Remington 870 pump-action shotgun. Before his three companions could move, he jacked around into the chamber and pointed it at them.
"Here they all are, Chief," he said. "The dragon, the sculptress lady, and her sidekick. George is dead." "Splendid. Stevenson, dead too. Things are, hotted up towards the end. No great loss. I have most of his soul. All I have to do is format it, and I'll be out of here. That'll be fun."
Kurt nodded.
"I'll say," he said. "You collected your winnings yet?" "Not yet. I have that pleasure to look forward to." "Clean up?" "Very much so. A long time ago, I bet Asmodee, Duke of Hell, a substantial sum of money that St. George would kill the dragon. At the time, he gave me 95-1. When he lost, I offered him double or quits on the rematch. But when I get out of this contraption, I shall be comfortably off."
The dragon started forwards, then caught sight of Kurt's gun and stayed where he was.
"Nosha, you bastard," he spat. "It was you. You fixed the bloody fight."
"It takes two, Fred. You were happy to take the money, and besides, it's all worked out perfectly. The dragon has killed St. George, which is what should have happened all those years ago. But looked at from another angle, St. George has once again killed the dragon, reaffirming the supremacy of good over evil. You've all got me to thank for that."
Yes, but Bianca started to interrupt and then realised that she had nothing to say. She shut her mouth and sat down on the edge of a desk.
"You don't imagine for one moment, do you, that your clowning about playing musical bodies could possibly have succeeded if it hadn't been part of my original plan, which Kurt here has carried out, I may say, like the true professional he is. Thank you, Kurt."
"You're welcome."
"Pity about Stevenson, I suppose."
The screen flickered for a moment.
"I imagined that idiot Courtright would have whisked him off in his helicopter as soon as the dragon, George, started killing people. My mistake. Anyway, he was expendable. He helped with the plan, his artificial time, the organization he built up, but he was never a part of it. Basically, his heart wasn't in it, his soul was, but only, if you'll pardon the expression, over his dead body. Anyway, all's well that ends well, and as it has, perfectly. In fact, and like you always used to say, Fred, omelets and eggs and omelets.
Did I ever tell you I secretly hated you at school, Nosha? I thought you were a vicious little prick back then, and I do now. Just thought I'd share that with you."
The screen dimmed, then flared bright green.
"Really? I'm sorry. All right, so perhaps I've made a lot of money along the way, but if it hadn't been for me, evil would have triumphed over good back then, and it'd have done exactly the same now. Which makes me the good guy, surely. Or do any of you have a problem with the logic of that?"
There was a long silence, eventually broken by Kurt clearing his throat.
"Shall I finish now, boss?"
he said, flicking off the safety catch.
"Why not? I never could abide self-indulgent gloating. You see, people, this is a fairly happy ending, but not yet happy. As I explained to Kurt not long ago, it's not just a case of evil being vanquished. What really matters in the long run is who does the vanquishing. It's like politics. No earthly use overthrowing evil and corrupt regime X if you immediately replace it with evil and corrupt regime Y. You do see that, don't you?"
The dragon tensed the muscles of his legs. He'd have only one chance to spring, and he was prepared to bet that Kurt's reflexes were a match for his, or better. But if he fell across Kurt, knocking him sideways, it might just give Bianca and Mike the chance to throw a chair through the screen. Something like that. The whole thing was probably completely futile, but never mind. He was dead already, and he was going to die again. At this precise moment, his subconscious was working on a brand new religion, the central fundamental doctrine of which was third time lucky.
"All right, Kurt. Do what you were hired to do. Time for you to become a saint, Kurt. Kill the dragon."
"Pardon me?"
"Don't be silly, Kurt. You're a professional. You do what you are told. Now kill the blasted dragon."
Kurt raised the gun ever so slightly. He was not smiling any more.
"Excuse me?" he said.
"Well,
"Sorry to split hairs," Kurt said, "but what our agreement actually said was I was hired to kill a dragon, not the
Kurt, what on earth are you?"
Lundqvist stood up in a single smooth movement. The muzzle of the gun traversed the room, covering Bianca, Mike, and the dragon. Then it was pointing at the screen.
"Only one dragon in this room, Nosha," he said. We got 1 female human, 2 male humans, a male saint, and you. Reckon that makes you the last of your species.
Cut! The shotgun boomed 8 times, filling the air with broken glasses. All the screens in the room disintegrated into powder. The printer in the corner screamed into action, and it filled 12 sides of A4 in 2.5 seconds before a blow from the stock of the Remington silenced it forever.
Another species extinct,
Kurt grumbled, mopping a slight cut under his left eye.
Don't you just hate it when that happens?
But the tale isn't over. That was the end of chapter 19. We have chapter 20 to come, which we shall do in just a minute to make sure that we have them both together, to finish off in a glorious fashion. So I shall not say good night. I shall not say keep hydrated and keep warm and keep cool depending on the temperature in your environment. I shall say I will see you shortly. Diddle-dee.